Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Agam, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio, and we have an exciting show for you this morning. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is going to be our guest. We're going to talk about the New York State budget, everything happening in session. That's coming up in a little bit. We're also going to hear from Maggie Hall from Big Fox News at 10. I know very often on this program we talk about the illegal cannabis stores and some of the, problems that we're facing as a state because of the illegal side of things. She's going to show us the legal side of the cannabis industry and a program that Elmira College is offering. So that's coming up in a little bit. Speaking of that exact topic, I found this interesting this morning, and this is not a judgment, it's just a statement of fact. American workers are testing positive for marijuana at 25-year highs. Of the more than 6 million general workforce tests that Quest, that's Quest Diagnostics, screened for marijuana in 2022, 4.3% came back positive. That's up from 3.9% the prior year, and that is the largest marijuana positivity rate since 1997. Now, other classes of drugs, their rates, such as opioids and barbiturates, declined. While marijuana was the main driver of the rise in positive drug tests, more tests also came back positive for amphetamines. Interesting. This coming again from Quest Diagnostic. The drug testing lab screened more than 6 million employees for pot following on-the-job accidents, and 4.3% came back positive. Wow. Interesting. Obviously, it is legal in the state of New York, not at the federal level. But I think, as the one article said, it can affect your reaction time, impact your memory, so it could have major issues on safety at work. We're going to talk a little bit about the presidential race if we have time. Some people making moves very soon, such as Mr. Governor DeSantis. Looks as if he'll be entering the race next week. We'll talk about that when we come back from break. As always, you can contact me if you have any questions for Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. That's the best way to reach me so I can ask him the questions. I'll check right before we go on the air, and throughout the interview I'll be checking. So if you have any questions, also just to contact me in general. I did receive one, I think it was late yesterday, maybe early this morning. I didn't look at the timestamp, but asking about posting our show to YouTube. We are on YouTube. We have decided to delay the posting, so you'll still be able to watch them, and they'll still be in the archive, but they'll be delayed about a week. So to encourage you, of course, to watch it live, because think of how much you miss when you don't watch it live. So that's to answer your question. I've had some people ask me on the street as well. So please tune in at 7 a.m. Otherwise, you got to wait a week. And this is timely stuff that we do every morning, so you don't want to wait a week. Trust me. When we come back, we're going to hear from Maggie Hall. There you go. Contact me. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. That's our contact information if you do have any questions for the Assemblyman who will be in very shortly. First, let's talk with Maggie Hall. We're not going to talk with her. We're going to play a clip from Maggie Hall because Elmira College is offering a unique program. We've talked about the illegal sticker stores. Well, let's take a look at the legal side of things. So from Big Fox News at 10, here's our friend, Maggie Hall.
Elmira College is kickstarting a new certification program. This program focuses on cannabis, the growing, selling, and production of it.
The cannabis program, it's a certificate program. It's a non-credit program. There are 3 courses. People can take 1, 2, or 3. They're 9 weeks each, 3 units.
The program fills a need in the industry.
They really fulfill, I think, a need in the area. What has happened, especially with New York's change in the laws regarding cannabis, the industry has really grown here, but we don't have people who really understand the industry.
There are 3 certificates that enrollees can complete, and you don't have to be a student at the college to take them.
So the first one, extraction and production, really goes into, I think how the cannabis is used and made in various forms, getting something ready for the market. Okay. The second one is retail, and that's really the retail industry, not just on selling and marketing, but also to understand products and to be able to answer questions knowledgeably when somebody comes in. The other one is more agricultural, the cultivation, from the seed and growth and utilization that way.
To find out more, visit elmira.edu. Maggie Hall, Big Fox News, Elmira.
Well, thank you, Maggie. That's kind of interesting, seeing how various entities capitalizing on the legalization of marijuana. That's well, if that's something that interests you, contact Elmira College. So thank you, Maggie. They do a great job at Big Fox News at 10. So if you've not tuned in, I would highly recommend it. Let's go to the presidential race. Ron DeSantis will be entering, it looks like, next week. He told his supporters that he invited something to the extent of make sure to be prepared. It's going to be a long night, meaning they're going to hit the ground running. They're going to start right off the bat as soon as they announce. DeSantis is expected to hold the launch of his candidacy, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but I'm going to try. Dunedin, Florida, his hometown, according to one of the people familiar with the plans. The event is expected to take place after Memorial Day, according to the first person. Was it after Memorial Day? So that would be the week after. That's interesting. The people familiar, of course, staying anonymous because nothing has been made official in public. The Wall Street Journal first reported that DeSantis plans to enter the race next week. So now we're hearing, according to that piece, either next week or the week after. I don't think there's any surprise. DeSantis giving an interview. I'm sorry, it wasn't an interview. It was Fox News that reported on this. He said Thursday that he is one of only 3 credible options when it comes to the White House, and that former President Trump's chances of winning are not great, according to Governor DeSantis. This was on a call. I thought originally it was an interview. It was on a call organized by Never Back Down, which is a super PAC that's really been supporting him, spending a lot of money, encouraging him to enter the race. You have basically 3 people at this point that are credible in this whole thing. This is Governor DeSantis saying on this phone call. Biden, Trump, and me. And I think of those 3, 2 have a chance to get elected president, Biden and me, based on all the data in the swing states, which is not great for the former president and probably insurmountable because people aren't going to change their view on him. Insurmountable, that's some pretty strong language, especially considering similar things were said back in 2016 about the former president, Donald Trump. This I don't know if I agree with. He said the corporate media wants Trump to be the nominee. Let's think about that for a moment. They obviously do not like Donald Trump. They may want him to be the nominee because if you recall my theory, ever since the backlash, if you will, at CNN for holding that town hall, my thought is they have sent the warning they're not going to give him coverage. Now, CNN made a statement yesterday that we're now more open to Republicans, but then you have many on their staff going and bad-mouthing the town hall and what CNN did. Anderson Cooper saying, you don't have to ever watch us again, essentially. I'm paraphrasing. So, does network... I don't know if I agree with that, unless they are going to censor him and they figure that's an easier way for Biden to win re-election. I don't know. They don't like DeSantis either, though. They don't like really too many Republicans in general. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is covered. I know there's been a lot of attacks on Governor DeSantis because of his fight with Disney and some of the bills that he's proposed and signed into law. So they will go after him, and I'm sure Governor DeSantis is ready for this. They're going to go after him just as strong. I don't know if you could say, if not stronger, than Trump. I think it'll be about equal. So I think he is going to hit the ground running, and it's going to be an exciting race to watch. There's others, of course, that are in the field that we may, well, Senator Scott, for instance, Tim Scott. I don't think he's someone that you should write off necessarily. I don't know if, well, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we come back. I don't want to run too late as we wait for Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We were talking about I know it's early, but the presidential race. Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, he is not officially in the race, but look at these numbers. He is going to spend $6 million on TV ads in Iowa and New Hampshire during this primary. Initial $5.5 million to run television ads statewide in Iowa and New Hampshire, as I mentioned, through the first GOP presidential debate. That's a huge amount of money to start off with. The sizable purchase includes broadcast TV, cable, satellite, and radio. Again, he is not officially declared, but I think that makes him a viable candidate just with that kind of money, and one that I think is kind of, in my opinion, a little funny, but I don't want to show favorites. I just think there's a little bit of delusion of grandeur here, kind of like former Governor Cuomo, thinking that he can run, potentially, that we're hearing behind the scenes, run for various office. Chris Christie is set to announce that he'll be running for president in 2024. Now, he has a very strong belief in himself that he has all the right answers. You see it very often on various interviews. This is what Trump has to do, or this is what DeSantis has to do. But multiple sources with direct knowledge are saying that Chris Christie will be announcing a run for president in the coming days. The campaign will be focused on New Hampshire and will have the financial backing of the New York Mets owner, Steve Cohen, among others, of course. This is not really a surprise. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Chris Christie, just the way he's been talking, believes that he has a chance at the White House. I guess time will tell. Now, we've got to take a short break because my guest is here. Let me unlock the door for Phil. There you go. Phil's coming in right now, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we're being joined this morning by Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. That's a mouthful. I got a lot out right there. Hey, Phil, thanks so much for being on the program.
It's good to be with you again, Frank.
We have a lot to cover.
I'm sure we do.
Where do you want to start? Should we start with let's start with the budget.
Sure.
We always say the good, the bad, and the ugly. Doesn't seem to be a lot of good, so let's focus on the bad and the ugly.
Well, the couple things I will say good, and there's not as much there. And when you spend $229 billion,
there's got to be something.
There's going to be some good things. So, I mean, obviously, our funding for our schools, our restoring cuts that the governor made to libraries that we have to go through a dog and pony show every year.
Right.
There was a $60 million increase in our CHIPS for our local roads and bridges for our local communities. That's something that Senator O'Mara, myself, Assemblyman Friend have worked on for over 10 years, having a local highway superintendent come up with their orange shirts on to make that case. So we were glad to get some sort of increase there. It wasn't enough from our perspective, but it was better than zero, which we've seen in the past.
Right.
Probably one of the more positive things that happened in the budget that really is not so much a money issue, but just a quality of life issue. The governor, and I give her credit. I criticize her on a lot.
Oh, no, right.
She pushed forward, obviously something Senator O'Mara, myself, Chris Friend talked about dealing with these sticker stores. We see them in communities all across our communities here in the southern tier and Finger Lakes. Now we're going to give more tools and resources to go in and shut these places down, have a coordinated effect. Because right now, the way the law, there was a loophole in the law that says you can gift or it's not a crime to gift or transfer marijuana. And what these sticker stores were doing, as we know, they go and they sell stickers or T-shirts for like $30, and they hand out marijuana with it. And it's just you don't know what's being put on this marijuana. You don't know if it's laced. We got the fentanyl issue.
And you look at the packaging that looks like, candy.
Yes, it's a welcome sign to our children. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen with this. It's very, very scary. So we wanted to address that issue. So, I think I would have seen tougher criminal penalties to make them felonies versus just misdemeanor, but there's significant fines. It could be up to $30,000 a day for the most egregious. So I think this is something that our DAs and law enforcement need. It's a big step in the right direction because It's a scourge in our communities. We don't need them here. And I wasn't a big advocate of legalizing marijuana in the first place because I thought it was going to cause problems, and we've seen it. It's a strain on our social services, our law enforcement, and now we created this that we've been dealing with for over a year. We've been calling for a fix to this over a year, so that was a positive thing.
And we're not getting any money from it. I think that's
No.
what people are shocked to find out, that it's not as if we're getting taxes as the legal dispensaries. We will,
Right.
and I think when we start getting into the bottom line on the taxes, I think that's why Governor Hochul said we have to do something about the illegal stores.
Yes, we had to do it, and we wanted to see more, but some of the progressives didn't want it as much on the criminal penalty side. It should have been a felony because they're breaking the law. They should go to jail.
Right. Do you think it's going to be an issue? Because I know the Office of Cannabis Management, which is a tough word to say, but do you think that, I don't like having more staff on that, but how are they going to handle all of the influx of requests to deal with these illegal stores?
Well, I mean, I think we need to make sure they have the resources they need,
Yeah.
and there was an increase for personnel there, and the tax and finance also has an enforcement role, especially going after dollars and tax dollars and cents as well, which is important. So I think it's definitely a big improvement on what we had. Now we just need to put it in action and make sure the prosecutions take place, make sure the Attorney General does her job, because she's going to have the main oversight of this too on the criminal side. So I think we need to make sure this is going forward, because again, this is not what our communities need. This is not what our communities want. We need to shut down these sticker stores sooner rather than later.
I was a little surprised that she put that in there, but I'm glad to see it.
Yes, me too.
What about, we talked with Sheriff Allard just the other day about bail reform.
Bail reform.
It's no change.
No
right?
change. I mean,
Not
it was just
really.
tinkering with the language. I mean, it was just, if she was pushing this to remove this less dangerous standard, all she did is they changed language. Said it's basically looking at the degree and kind of actions needed to make sure that a return to court. That's nothing. That means nothing.
No.
And basically, it's just words. The fact of the matter is, there was no change to allow judges in New York State to consider the dangerousness of an individual
Right.
when dealing with pretrial release and bail. None. So now we still remain the only state in the country now that does not give that judicial discretion to our judges to deal with this, to keep our most violent or dangerous individuals off the streets. And it's just, and we see it's like a catch and release program. And these people, they go into court and they go, I'll see you again. Thanks for bail reform. It's a problem. So if the governor's taking a victory lap on bail reform, she's wrong. She didn't get a victory lap. The progressive socialists, the legislature stopped her. And that's unfortunate, because the number one priority a government has is to keep its citizens safe.
Exactly.
And we're failing them in this area. And that's just, the bail reform is just one part of the problem. The discovery reform, the raise the age, 16 and 17-year-olds now being dealt with in family court, and they're being recruited for gang and gun violence
Right.
because they know the criminal penalties against them aren't going to go through. So, and we see it with the rise in crime statistics when you compare like shooting incidents in the major cities from 2019 to 2022. It's up significantly, some triple digits in a number of neighborhoods, number of communities. It's just wrong, and we have to do more to keep our citizens safe. So the bail reform was non-existent in this budget.
I feel like it was almost just a PR move, because it made
Of course.
so small changes, but now Governor Hochul, after seeing how successful Zeldin was with the issue of crime, I think it was really a scenario where she said, let's just do this to maybe not the PR. I'm not going to say
That's
that,
okay.
but you know what I mean, to say to the various people in New York, hey guys, no, look, we're trying our hardest, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, she removed the less dangerous or restrictive standard,
Right.
and put it back in with this standard that makes you help to assure a return to court. So it's like saying instead of brushing your teeth with your right hand, you have to brush your teeth with your
Right,
left hand.
that's
It's
what I
not
mean.
a big
No.
difference, not a substantial policy.
But she loved having the press conferences to get the attention on it. You've got to look like you're doing something. I was surprised there was such a fight on such a small change.
Yes, I mean, it held up the budget for over a month.
I know.
And the one thing I say to people is the one thing about having a late budget, not because it was a good budget, but it's really delayed them on a number of their other policy issues they want to try to accomplish before the end of session.
Right.
So that was a positive from my perspective. But the budget has a lot more bad than good.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about the end of session here. But what about, I want to get your take on a minimum wage increase.
Minimum wage is a bad idea. I mean,
Yeah.
now, our local communities are being hit from this, our small businesses. I mean, we're at a competitive disadvantage already. If you go to Pennsylvania, I mean, now, I have the cigarette tax increase,
Right.
along the PA border, we're $2.60. They're $2.60 a pack in Pennsylvania, or $5.60 a pack now in New York. You take the minimum wage. That's not really a good sign for our small businesses, our mom and pop stores, our service stations, our those types of stores, and it's just not a good thing. And the other thing on the minimum wage and the cigarette tax, let me just kind of tie that together.
Sure.
If I may, it's not going to make a big difference. I mean, we're going to lose revenue because they say, well, we're going to have less people smoking, which is not the case.
It's
They're going
never
to go
been the case.
here. We're going to go to Pennsylvania or Ohio, which I brought up on the floor, acknowledge them.
Right.
We also have the Native American reservations that are selling them for no taxes. So we're not going to have any positive impact, and we're just going to hurt mom and pop businesses. And that's why I said, why aren't we doing more to go after these cannabis stores? So I'm glad we addressed that story.
Yeah, it's the same thing when you think about it. That they create a black market by doing this.
Oh, yeah,
it's exactly what they did with the cannabis store.
It's a tremendous black program, but but the minimum wage increase. I mean, obviously we're already struggling there. Our businesses. Remember now, our small businesses were crushed by COVID,
Right.
With the forced mandates and lockdowns and closures. Then on top of it, because we borrow $11 billion from the federal government for unemployment, instead of using federal COVID monies to help pay back that debt to the federal government, now it's being passed on to the small businesses with an unemployment surcharge. So we're hitting them over and over again. So we're going to hit them now with this unemployment surcharge that they're getting faced with now. No relief for them like the other states did. I think we're one of 6 states that didn't provide the COVID emergency relief, which would have removed that debt. And on top of the unemployment, the comptroller said there's a fraud there that they talked about $11 billion in fraud.
I know.
So I mean the billions of dollars so we have, and why aren't we addressing that? But you take the minimum wage, you take the unemployment insurance, no help for them, the closures, the lockdowns, and all these things.
Never mind inflation.
Inflation.
I mean the economy.
The
Yeah.
supply chain.
Yeah.
All those things have been really a burden on our small business, and our small businesses are the ones that create the jobs in our economy.
I always feel bad because we think about the people that won't be hired because of it, but you think of the person who's been really working hard for the last, let's say, 10 years to get to that amount, and now the guy walking in the brand new that day gets the same amount. You're going to have people leave too.
Well, it's the same thing too. Is I talked about a big priority to me is that those individuals who work with our most vulnerable citizens, the developmentally and intellectually disabled, the individuals who work for our local ARCs, serving those individuals who are most vulnerable, who are dealt with very bad hand in life and had no fault of their own, and their quality of life and their quality of care is at the forefront. And it's the direct support professionals who care for them do that job not for the money, because they care and they want to provide help. Now you talk to those families, you talk to those workers, they leave these jobs and they go work for McDonald's or Burger King where they're making $17, $18 an hour. Exactly. How is that fair? We should be putting the resources into them, and now you're putting the minimum wage increase, which is only going to increase the disparity for them and hurt them, I think, in the long run. So I think that's problematic as well. And this budgeting is all about priorities, Franks. And when you see them, the governor, this budget increased business taxes by nearly $3 billion over the next 3 years, a $700 million film tax credit for Hollywood. For the Hollywood donors. I mean, I brought this up on the floor and I bring it up every year. Do you realize Saturday Night Live has received over $80 million in subsidies?
And they're known from being based in New York.
Yes. I mean, that's why I bring up the show. How do they start their show off every week?
Live
from New York.
Yeah.
Not live from Saskatchewan.
No.
Do we think they're going to leave New York? No.
Of course
Even
not.
Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show receives several, tens of millions of dollars since the show's been in. And now they even made it more so they can get funding and credit back on the top line. So Jimmy Fallon's salary is going to be subsidized by, if they choose to enact it, through tax credits paid by upstate New Yorkers. And where are the priorities? Why is that such a priority? I don't know.
Could we think about maybe helping our small businesses, or maybe encouraging businesses to come here, not just Hollywood?
I mean, $700 million it was $420 before. Now we're increasing it to $700 million.
And what are the benefits? I mean, I know it brings some money, but it's not.
They say that it helps because you have the staff that works on those shows and things like that. But ultimately, that money goes in the pocket of the Hollywood millionaire
elites,
the elites, and Steven Spielberg's and others. Yeah. Why are we helping them? Why aren't we helping the small businesses? Why aren't we helping the farmers? I mean, more and more. The policies of this state just are aligned in the wrong direction. And on top of it, this budget, the governor pushed for $640+ million that were federal aid that was designated and directed to our counties. The governor went in and said, I'm taking that money back and I'm going to use it for our own. That's going to basically increase taxes. There was studies saying it would increase property taxes by 7 to 15%. Wow. That's money was directed from the federal government to the counties. And where's Senator Chuck Schumer? Where's Senator Gillibrand standing up for these upstate counties? That money was directed towards them. But I hear they have no problem speaking up when it deals with the progressive issues, but these
Right.
upstate counties are getting hurt. Why aren't they speaking up, saying that money is directed for them?
And we just can't afford it. This
can't.
is such a trend on the program that we talk about so often. This is why there's a mass exodus. They're focused on
It is.
things like Hollywood and not people like you and I who think, what point is at the breaking point where
Right.
we can't survive here in New York?
Well, listen, we already have the highest taxes in the
Exactly.
nation. We have the worst business climate in the
Mhm.
nation. The comptroller, when we released the budget back in January, said we're going to increase our debt load by 42%, or $2.5 billion. So it's one policy after another. We've had over 500,000 New Yorkers leave New York in the past 2 years. They're going to continue. And on top of it, you put an energy plan that they're putting in place. I know we want to talk about
I wanna
energy
talk
more
that,
in the future, but
even today, yeah.
I mean, that's something that now we're going to look into no new natural gas hookups for new buildings,
Yeah.
but that's ultimately they're going to ultimately come for existing stoves and,
Yeah,
and,
there's no
and
doubt.
furnaces and boilers. And then, I mean, already the governor's climate action council said this energy plan that we're moving down to the so-called Green New Deal for New York, if we take no action right now, is going to increase to help stem the cost. Increase gas prices at the pump by 62 cents a gallon,
Wow.
and increase natural gas prices by 80%. So that's going to mean you who heat your homes with natural gas are going to pay a premium. When you go to the pump, you're going to pay a premium. And when we try to talk about just changing the methodology to a 100-year methane emissions evaluation instead of a 20-year, when every other state in the country does a 100-year, the
Right.
federal government does a 100-year, but New York State needs to lead on this,
Of
and
course.
so it's just going to be detrimental. Even if we went to a 100-year methodology, it's going to hurt. But what this electrification thing, what it's going to do, Frank, is takes away consumer choice on how you
Mm-hmm.
cook your food, how you heat your home, how you power your buildings, and the kind of car you can drive.
Right.
That's where they're heading. It's all about taking away freedoms and this freedom of choice. But the other thing is it's unsustainable for the grid.
The grid cannot
It's going to
handle it.
lead to dangerous blackouts.
Mhm.
It's going to definitely increase utility costs, housing costs, construction
Mm-hmm.
costs, and significant increase in costs for homeowners and businesses to retrofit your buildings for conversion costs,
Right.
because when you won't be able to use natural gas or other fossil fuels to power your home or heat your home or anything else like that as well. And it's going to be a challenge to the reliability of the grid. So all these things as well will continue to lead to this mass exodus of people. And I said over and over again, businesses, when they talk about energy policy, they care about affordability
Yes.
and reliability. And if they can't get affordability and reliability in their energy plan here, they're going to go someplace else where they can do it.
Right, and you think, we've talked about this in the past, but we're in a rural area. I had a gentleman that called in and said, we were out, this was back at the beginning of the program when it was still cold weather. They hadn't had power in almost a week. How do you survive it? I mean, I have an electric stove. You're not going to eat.
No, I mean, that's the scary thing. I mean,
Yeah.
the storm we had up in Buffalo in the
Yeah.
wintertime, I mean, you talk to people that they wouldn't have been able to survive if they were dealing with electrification.
No
I mean, the
heat.
thing is,
Mhm.
even in California, which many of my colleagues in the progressive left in New York want to mirror,
Yeah.
they were telling people, listen, don't charge your electric vehicles overnight. We don't want to have a blackout.
Yeah.
Really? What kind of policy is this? And it's really, and when we get into the major energy policies, when we talk about that sometimes, because not enough time with this show.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean, you're talking about a major, massive build out of the grid, tripling our generating capacity, because right now we're at 41 gigawatts of
Right.
generating capacity. We have to get to like 120 gigawatts to meet these mandates.
Yeah. I got to take a short break. Can you stay
Sure.
with us? We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services interview section of our program, and we're being joined by Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, thanks so much for spending so much time with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I want to go back to energy for just a moment. And I mentioned off the air, I was reading a quote, and there's the carve out for gas generators for like hospitals and nursing homes. And the gentleman that was with a natural gas organization said, all you're doing is proving that this is the most reliable form of energy.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the thing about natural gas is it's dispatchable. It's 24/7.
Yeah.
And that's the policy that they're implementing is to put a focus on full electrification. It'll be relying on wind and solar and the hydro that we have. And wind and solar is not it's not dispatchable. It's intermittent. So if the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining, we're not getting generation. Where natural gas is and nuclear is. That's where we should be focusing on reliable energy. And that's the problem with this too, Frank, as we move forward. Even the NISO, who's charged with making sure the lights stay on, the power stays on,
Right.
said by 2040 we need 27 to 45 gigawatts of additional dispatchable energy resources, emission-free resources to meet this mandate. again, wind and solar does not count.
No.
And the technology does not exist yet. It's not there. So it's just like this magic wand out there. Someone's going to develop it.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, we see the DEC and other ones not providing renewing air permits for existing natural gas power plants, not providing new permits for new gas power plants because it doesn't meet our so-called climate goals. But yet we don't have the resources and the technology in place to provide emission-free resources that are dispatchable and available 24/7. That goes back to the point that we were talking about California saying, don't charge your electric vehicles overnight because we don't want a blackout. And this is dangerous policy. It's going to lead to potential blackouts. And listen, I'm not opposed to investing in renewable technology. We should and we are.
Yeah.
So, but we need to
can't put this
diversify.
on a realistic time frame.
We
on it.
can't. I mean, you have to go through it
Be reasonable.
reasonable path.
Yeah.
But these guys are all on. We got to do it now. We got to do it first. But yet,
That's what it is. We got to be first. We got to beat everybody.
And it's we always first on the worst things and last on the other things.
I know.
But I mean, the fact of the matter is, this only affects New York, and New York only contributes 0.4% of total global emissions. China contributes 29%, has 1,000 coal plants and building more. In fact, they're going to expand their coal capacity by 70 gigawatts over the next year. And again, 70 gigawatts, that's double almost what our total generating capacity with wind, with solar, with hydro, and with nuclear, natural gas, and oil. So, I mean, it's just unattainable.
Yeah, it is.
It isn't. You need like a magic wand to do it, but you got these advocates. It's like they're elitist, and it's like a religion.
It really is.
But at the end of the day, people want to know when they hit that switch, the light's going to stay on, when their heat's going to stay on, and that's the pathway we're going down with. And I hate to sound alarmist, but it's a matter of fact. And that's the policies of the state, because it's not only just everyone's going to say it's just for new. Well, the governor, but the Climate Action Council plan says by 2030, if you heat your homes with natural gas or a fossil fuel, you won't be able to replace that natural gas boiler furnace with the natural gas boiler furnace. You have to fully electrify. And the estimates say it will cost the average homeowner over $35,000 to convert your home. And it's not just the air source heat pump or the geothermal heat pump in the appliances. You have to deal with the shell of your property. You have to deal with the electric upgrade circuit. So there's massive amounts of cost increases. And who can afford that? And they say, I mean, the senior citizen, you can talk about tax credits. The senior citizen on a fixed income, a lot of them don't pay taxes, so a tax credit's going to do them no good, John.
Right.
And you can talk about rebates, but you still have to upfront that money. And I think a lot of people would rather use that money to help put the kids through school, to pay for important
anything.
bills, and to make sure they have a reliable source of energy coming into their home. And that's especially the businesses. I mean, one thing, you manufacture all these things, it's going to be problematic.
And think about wasted product and things like that when you lose power. This is just one of many reasons why people are leaving the state.
It is. I mean, you're taking away consumer choice. I mean,
Yes.
you're telling them you can't heat your home with a gas stove. You can't have a gas dryer. You can't have gas heat. I mean,
Vehicles.
60% of New Yorkers right now heat their homes with natural gas. 60%. What a major transformation that's going to take. And the requirement, you don't have the resources here in City of Corning. You can't put a geothermal heat pump next to each home. You can't put a electric charging station in every property.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to work. And it's just misplaced priorities, my perspective, and it's just going to continue to drive the excess. And it's not good energy policy. I mean, we need a diversified energy portfolio. Think about your 401k. You don't put it on stocks, cash, and bonds. You diversify it to protect it. So yes, we should invest in wind, solar, and hydro, but we also need to invest in nuclear, and natural gas needs to be part of our energy portfolio to make sure it's resilient and reliable. But the pathway they're going down is full electrification is not one to ensure reliability of the grid. It's just going to challenge it, and it's not. We're going so fast. I mean, even our school districts with the electric school bus mandate. I mean, we're moving. They're putting the mandate on them ahead of the state in and of itself.
Yeah.
By 2027, every new school bus, unless something changes, has to be a zero emission, which is basically electric. And the cost of an electric school bus is $400,000 to $450,000. A regular school bus is about $100,000 to $125,000, and it has to get voted by the voter. When I went and voted for the school board election, they had about $870,000 for new buses.
Yeah.
You're talking about that's like two buses. I mean, that can buy multiple. I mean, and then about the infrastructure. How you're going to house these buses, how you're going to charge these buses, the infrastructure is in place, and the range issues. I mean, when we want to take a sectional team up to Syracuse, I mean, we're going to take two buses. Where are you going to meet halfway? Because there's serious range issues, and then it takes forever to charge these things. And forget about the elements that are used to produce these batteries. It's being used with child labor with the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're they're polluting waters and rivers and streams over there. It's almost like they don't want to know about this. They don't want to hear about this as long as it's not happening here. And as long as they don't see kids dying and being maimed here,
Exactly.
as long as we don't see water being polluted here, it's okay because it's a means to an end.
And we can virtue signal while horrible things are going on over here, but we look like we care the
Right.
most.
And when I bring up the 0.4%, we're only 0.4. The response I get from my colleagues on our side is like, well, we're going to lead. We're going to lead. And I say, yeah, well, we're going to lead already. We're continue to lead with more access of farmers, families, businesses, and manufacturers. But when I bring up the fact that they're using child labor and we're doing environmental problems with the extraction of these minerals, the nickel, the cobalt, the lithium, and lithium, all those things to produce these batteries to power these electric vehicles in this mandate, they say, well, that's up to the federal government to lead.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? How hypocritical it is. And the other thing is, on this whole energy policy, right, is we're turning our whole energy security over to China. China controls 80% of the solar market. They produce it. How do they produce it? They use coal energy. And they control 80+% of all the rare earth materials, the lithium, the cobalt, the cadmium, for the processing of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be being extracted in the Democratic Republic of Congo because 70% of the extraction happens there with this child labor, well documented, but it's being processed in China. They have that control. And how do they process it? They use coal energy. So where's the mean? It's like a means to an end. I mean, it doesn't make any
But
sense.
you also look at the supply chain issues we had in the past. So now China has this control
Oh, yeah.
over, I mean, that's a
They
red
have full
flag.
control, but yet they're expanding their coal capacity.
Yeah.
I mean, and then China's like 29%, India's 7%.
Yeah.
They're using coal energy. They're a poor country. They want reliable energy.
Sure.
And Russia's 4%. That's 40% between those three countries. And we're 0.4, but we're going to get down to 0. It's not going to make one difference whatsoever. It's like, what do they want, a wall? They think there's a wall in our state. And we know the progressive Democrats don't like walls.
Right. That's good. Let's take another short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we're being joined by Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, I know we could talk about energy policy all day, but let's I keep promising it, but let's schedule something soon. So we'll just spend a whole show on it.
Sure.
Does that sound okay?
Happy to do that.
I want to talk about the migrant issue. Obviously, everybody's talking about it, but I just have to take one last dig at Albany politics. The lack of transparency in this budget, and how many times I had to say anonymous sources or anonymity, which I hate saying that word. It's not fair to us who are. Now we can't use our stoves. You know, we're getting hit with all these taxes. There's an article today where spending's up, tax revenue's down. Of course, it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. I mean, this budget process, it was delayed for over a month, but yet when they finally get the agreement in place they want to do, we had a press conference like even a week before this. So listen, when you get the bills, let them age properly. Let them be in the public view for 3 days. And for 3 days in Albany is really, if you put the bill in at 11:59 on Monday, and then you can actually take it up at 12:01 on Wednesday. But they can't even do that. And they say basically have to use this message of necessity. And it was not an emergency.
An emergency, and then she goes to a Yankees game, Governor Hochul.
Yeah.
She declares an emergency, and then see you later, going to the Yankees game. What kind of emergency lets she go to a Yankees game?
And then the message of necessity should be used for an emergency.
Yes.
There's no reason to use a message of necessity to pass a budget bill. There's no rush. Nothing was going to change overnight. We had already waited a month. We could wait a month because the governor said we need a good budget, but we can't wait 3 days for the public to properly view it and examine it so they can get back to us and say, hey, Governor, hey, someone pounds down. I don't like this. I like this. Why are you? This is happening. You got so little time to review it. But, we have tremendous staff to help identify these things. So when we do the debates on the floor and we highlight all these problems, but the public doesn't have a chance to view it. And they do that on all these major issues. Whether it's, when they're stripping away Second Amendment rights, they do it.
Exactly.
They do it in the blink of an eye, but they don't want full transparency. And they talk about transparency. I mean, this governor said, "I'm going to be the most transparent governor." I mean, again, it's words, just like the bail reform that was done. It's words. It's not. It doesn't have meaning at all.
Right. Let's talk about the migrant issue. And I didn't mean to say this till the end because there's probably a lot we can talk about. We don't actually have that much time. But what are you hearing in Albany? Obviously, New York City has really become the hotbed for this immigration debate.
Well, it's a big problem, and let's make no ifs, ands, or buts of it. This is a complete failure of President Biden and his administration to secure the border. It's unbelievable that they just ignore this. I mean, this growing influx of illegal immigrants that are coming over the southern border. And I'm sure some of them are here looking really avoid persecution. Sure. But there are a lot of cartels or drug gangs,
there is.
the fentanyl. I mean, it's happening over and over again. And now they're making their way up into, New York City is a sanctuary city, self-proclaimed. So, and in the budget, Governor Hochul was pushing for, and they provided $1 billion in funding to New York City to deal with the migrant issue, and it's a mess. And now Mayor Adams is putting migrants and shipping them upstate, and now Governor Hochul is scoping out state properties like our SUNY system to put illegal immigrants there. That's completely unacceptable. Our conferences steadfast against it. We had a press conference in Albany this week, demanding several things. I mean, number one, there should be full transparency, like we're talking again. What about every 30 days the governor and the state should report back what's happening with the federal funds that are being allocated, what's happening with the state funds that are being allocated, so we know how that's being used to address this issue. But yet, now we're looking at sending them upstate New York. Right. Why not make sure any of these individuals that come in, and when they get released, they get released with a future court date. Right. That's years away. Yeah. So we should
2035 was one. Yeah, the New York Post reported.
So we should be. One of my colleagues is putting in a bill, which I fully support. Just said we should be registering every one of them,
yes,
doing background checks, fingerprinting, so we don't know who they are or what they're coming with, and then so we can track them through this process until they have to go to the court. Mm-hmm. But this is unacceptable, and now we see this. This is very, very dangerous, and we need to address it right away. And on top of it, we don't have the resources here in upstate New York. We don't have the services. No. You see some county execs.
If New York City can't do it, how can we do it? You're right. Chris Moss and others declaring the state of emergency.
Yes, and it is because you have to be on your. And at the same time, Governor Hochul during the budget process took away $640 million. We talked about that earlier from counties, which is going to basically increase property taxes 7 to 15%. And how are they supposed to provide these services to these illegal migrants that are coming here? And it's wrong. It's a big problem. But it all stems back to the failure of this president to secure the border. Yes. And it's like the progressive socialist left they want to wash their hands of it, and they don't want to take action, and they want to point fingers everywhere else. But unbelievable! This is a crisis, and it's going to get worse. Crisis. And when you hear they're looking at these properties, we should be doing everything we can to stop it. I said if I was a county exec and they shipped up a busload of illegal migrants from Mayor Adams City, I'd put them right on the bus and send them right back.
Yeah,
period.
You have to. We got to take one last short break. Is that okay?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm just running a little long. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Our guest, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, I know we're just about out of time here, and thank you so much for giving us this much time. But I think, to me, whether it's crime or the migrant issue, these are the biggest focus of the people that I talk to on a regular basis. And it seems like Albany's continuing, not you, of course, taking the complete wrong-headed decision on this, right?
Yes, it's very discouraging, whether it's crime, whether it's the economics issue, whether it's this migrant issue. Mm-hmm. It seems to go down the wrong pathway time and time again. And the people that are paying the price are the families, the farmers, the small businesses, the manufacturers, people in our upstate rural communities, with the focus always on New York City. Mm-hmm. We hear over and over again about some of our energy policies, about the economically disadvantaged. Mm-hmm. What about the rural poor?
Right.
This is not a wealthy area. But they're going to put these mandates on our local communities, on our local families, without any recollection to how costs, affordability, or reliability of our energy plan or our policies impact them. And it's just wrong-headed policies. I think when you get back to crime in this migrant situation, the number one responsibility a government has is to protect citizens.
Right.
And I think the New York State's failing mightily time and time again with the policies we've seen adapted, especially under one-party control in Albany.
You're right. Phil, thanks for giving us so much time. I got to go. This went quick. So thank you for being on. All right, this has been Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will see you bright and early, 7 a.m. on Monday. I got to find my right button. We will talk to you then. Hi, I'm Frank Acom. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. We'll be uploading each edition of Frankly Speaking 1 week after the original air date. So, let me remind you to watch the live version of Frankly Speaking, weekday mornings starting at 7, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox.